recut the music.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'll pass it over to Ellen to go ahead and give us a welcome.
Hello, and good day. Thanks for joining us. We have kind of a small group today, but that's fine. We are, just going to have it. It'll be very flexible, conversational. But I wanted to give you guys a welcome from Carolina Public Press. Many of you may know that, we are a nonprofit, independent news organization. We do not try to be the newspaper of record. We focus mostly on investigative reporting that goes statewide. We were founded in 2011 in Western North Carolina and expanded our reach in 2018 to cover the whole state. We started our Eastern Carolina Bureau in January of 2022, and you'll hear shortly from Ben Sessoms, who's the reporter who covers Eastern Carolina. And our goal with that was really to provide more regional nonpartisan journalism in that area. And, since then, we've been really working hard to make a breakthrough in that area and, spread the word about Carolina Public Press and our reporting to people in the eastern part of the state. I'll let Lindsay take over and kind of do the run of show. Oh, I wanted to introduce, I'm sorry, I forgot. I wanted to introduce Cara Andrade, who is our brand new, newly minted editor-in-chief, who has just joined us recently and is already hit the ground running with a lot of story ideas and deep dives into multimedia and things like that. So we're really excited to have Cara on board. Ben, I mentioned, our Eastern North Carolina reporter. I'm Ellen. Lindsay is our rural engagement coordinator, and Lisa Lopez, our director of development. So we're all here to answer questions if anybody has any questions for us toward the end, but let's go ahead and get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. We're just here to have a conversation about news and information needs in Eastern North Carolina. We've been doing a project for most of this year called NC Connections, Closing the News Gap. And that project has been a research project involving a large-scale survey, interviews, focus groups like this, and also a couple in-person events to try and better understand the news and internet needs of folks in North Carolina. We know that those needs are sometimes defined by geography. So we've had conversations in sort of the southeast border belt region of the state. We've also had conversations in Western North Carolina. We've had conversations with bilingual and Spanish-English speakers. And today we're just here to continue that conversation with folks in the Fayetteville and Eastern North Carolina area. So we're doing some intros and welcome right now. We'll spend about half an hour today asking questions about news and information and internet needs. We'll have some time toward the end for discussion, and we'll also have time at the end for just a little wrap up and some additional information about Carolina Public Press. So ground rules, we would love to hear from everyone today. This is a small group, so it should be possible for all of us to have our voices heard. You can go ahead and use the hand raising application of Zoom in order to speak, or you can just unmute yourself and go ahead and jump into conversation. I think there's a small enough number that we should be able to do that. We ask that everyone here listens with respect. We know that there are going to be potential for some differences of opinions, and that's totally fine. We want to hear from your experience, so be sure to use I statements about your news and internet needs, and try to suspend judgment and just listen with respect to what other folks are saying. We can go ahead and have folks introduce yourself. If you want to just go ahead and unmute and say a couple sentences about who you are and why you're here, that would be great.
I'm Mary Holmes, Cumberland Community Foundation, and my colleague Kendra Murray, our Community Grants Manager. We're here observing. We'll just be quiet and observe, but thank you for participating.
As Mary mentioned, I'm Kendra. It's good to see you guys.
Thanks for being here.
Hi, I'm Chris O'Keefe McCusker. I live in Alamance County, but this was the closest one focus groups that I was assigned to. And I work for Triangle J Council of Governments, which covers 7 counties, and my specific job covers Orange and Chatham counties, and particularly interested in how news and information is shared in the rural areas of the counties, Alamance, Orange, and Chatham being the ones I'm the most interested in.
Great, thank you for being here.
Hi, I'm Mitch Connor. I'm in Fayetteville, North Carolina, right outside of Fort Bragg. I am the pivot point. I'll just leave it like that. I'm an activist. I'm in every group. I'm in a lot of city hall meetings. I was just there last night because they've made it illegal to be homeless. I was there and watched them get their papers and citations handed to some of these people. So I'm going to be the person you may feel has that possible of difference of opinion, because of course I'm very active in a lot of communities. And I just wanted to be upfront with that so everybody was aware. I definitely have a lot of energy from last night left on me from hearing 19 homeless people speak to the city council. So there's been a lot of movement. But yeah, and I'm also, just to throw it out for any of the other organizations, I'm jobless and I'm looking for ways to help with these investigative ways of getting ideas out and so on and so forth. Otherwise, I'll just listen.
Great, thank you so much, everybody. So we'll move into our questions for the day. Our first question is, how do you get your news and information? Pretty broad question. We just want to hear about how people access the news in North Carolina. And you can go ahead and unmute yourself and just jump in.
I'd like to, if you don't mind, Mitch, I'd like to put you on the spot since you are, the self-described activist. How do you get your news about what's going on in Fayetteville? How do you find out about what's happening with the city council and the different boards, et cetera, that, are related to the advocacy that you're interested in?
Trying to give it a short story, of course, a short answer. I go by any means possible. I check my phone, whether that's internet, email. I go through TV, of course. Right now I've got CBS News Live still showing the tickers and listening to all the quote unquote misinformation that they're spewing right now. But I'm also, like I said, I have been working with Black-led organizations and coalitions since about 2015, right around the turn of the Black Lives Matter movement. I have been in everything from the NAACP. I've been in the Black Panthers. I mean, I've been around everybody from Fred Cox's wife Jacob Blake Sr. I've been around Ahmaud Arbery's family. Jason Walker was lynched here. Jada Johnson was lynched here. I know their fathers. I know a lot of programs. The fact that nobody in here probably knows me is surprising, but I'm in everything. NCAPRI, Empowerment Project with helping people learning how to canvas. So like I said, I'm the pivot man. They call me 411 out here for a reason.
Chris, what about you? You said that you're working for the government. I'm curious how you get
Well,
news.
Well, I would say I'm on a lot of email lists, so I get news from different places and different perspectives. I try to get some kind of in-person things from where I live. I mean, I get news, I read things on the bulletin board at the public library. So I try to get local news in a number of different ways, but I'm on so many different email lists personally and for my job. And I'm very part-time at my job, but my job title is coordinator of community resource connections for aging and disability. So a lot of that is just keeping up what's going on in the areas, or kind of connecting different people in different groups. So when I go in different meetings, I'm networking behind the scenes or trying to meet people who go to different meetings. I would say I get minimal TV news, and I used Carolina Carolina Public Press as my information for the election returns. And I try to find things that are unbiased and as much as possible and things like that. I would say for work related things, I get a certain amount of news from NC Health News.
Oh, great. Yeah.
But I'll just say my general impression is Carolina Public Press seems a little bit more neutral and objective as much as possible in the reporting than what I sometimes read in that. So when I have a lot of different ways to look at things, but sometimes I just want as close as possible to the neutral facts and then make my own decision about how I'm interpreting that. So that's one thing I look for. And I don't have any big newspaper subscription or anything like that, because I find that to be too biased, and that's not really how I like to get my news now.
Yeah, thank you. It looks like we just had another person join the room. Would you mind introducing yourself briefly? You can go ahead and unmute yourself and just give a couple sentences about who you are and what you're doing here.
My name is Joyce Tucker, and I got this invitation, and I get the email, and it's always interesting. So I thought that this would be a good time to hear a little bit more about the Carolina Public Press. And I'd just like to thank you for the articles that you've provided through your emails. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you for being here. We were just starting with some questions from y'all. We want to hear a little bit from you about how you get your news and information. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing with the group, how do you get your news these days?
Well, I try to look at a little bit of local news, but it's so depressing that I limit that. And I look at CNN and MSNBC, and several emails that I get, some daily, some maybe weekly, but that's usually how I get my news. The newspaper, I get the newspaper, but our newspaper is no longer a newspaper. It's a pages of advertisement, and the news that they are reporting is what I've already heard on the local news or the CNN. So I'm thinking about just stopping that subscription, but I've gotten a newspaper at my front door for probably 40 years, and it's just kind of hard to let go, but I'm gonna have to, because what I get and what I pay, there's no comparison.
Mm,
So
yeah.
that's,
What newspaper is that you're speaking about?
it's the Fayetteville Observer.
Fayetteville Observer. Okay.
Yeah, it's just, I- it's unbelievable. I mean, it's really unbelievable. So like I say, I'm going to, after this time, I think I'm going to give it up. I have a lot of friends who no longer take the paper, so it's just bad. It's just bad. So
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Part of the context for the project that we're very close to wrapping up these days is trying to have a better understanding of the closure of local newspapers. We know that it's around like 40 newspapers in North Carolina have closed in the last 10 years or so, leaving 6 counties with no local newspaper anymore. So we know that these are called news deserts, are certainly growing and a major concern of ours and a lot of folks in the news world. We want to just, find out more about how people are getting the news, especially in places where there are no longer reliable or really subscription worthy news sources. So we appreciate your perspective. I'm seeing that, Mitch, you just mentioned that the Fayetteville Observer was bought out and a lot of reporters left. And yeah, that's a really good point to make. We're noticing 7 reporters. Wow. That's also a growing trend that we're seeing, is the consolidation of news sources. More and more are being bought out by these like national news organizations. And so they're, like you were saying, Joyce, they're not really like local newspapers anymore. They're kind of just regurgitating national news. So yeah, thank you for that.
and
Joyce, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
yeah, could I also add that the Fayetteville paper, I don't know where it comes from, because the building is closed. I mean, there's no one there. I was trying to get a reprint of an article and emailed it was a sports article, emailed the gentleman. I still haven't heard from him. So I decided I would go buy the news. It's nobody there. It's just closed, gone, just gone. So that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah. Thank you. Unfortunately, we're seeing that all over the state, but we particularly want to hear about what's happening in Eastern North Carolina for sure. Thank you. I'll move on to the next question that we have for y'all.
I had one, Lindsay.
Go ahead, Ellen.
I had a follow-up for Chris, since we were talking about news sources, and you mentioned, Chris, that you were interested in, especially in rural areas. What has your experience been as far as like how people in rural areas are getting their news, especially if, as like Lindsay was talking about, a small rural newspaper ends up closing and then there's no source for people in that area? Are you seeing, are you thinking that they're, just getting, like you said, emails, et cetera, or they're looking at more national news or areas that are further away from them, like on their cell phones, et cetera? I mean, I'm just curious about what your experience has been.
I mean, since I don't work in the news business, I might not be able to completely answer that, but just through work situations, I would say things like in Chatham County, they have these things called resource hubs where there might be some local community event or neighborhood event, and then they like health department and Chatham Health Alliance will send people from various things. They might have like flyers about something else, like flyers about food insecurity or where you can get COVID shots or so kind of trying to capitalize on that there are some local kind of smaller deal things happening in local areas, or like the other way I would say is music and art festivals and health festivals like in Siler City, or they had a Hispanic festival in Graham recently. I mean, that's not super rural, but still that's a way to kind of reach different, possibly different group, or just, so I mean, I know I learn a lot about people and just word of mouth at those type of things like music and art and cultural events in the community. So it's kind of more sort of word of mouth, but then people, distributing flyers at events like that. I don't know that that's the only way that people get news, but it's kind of an
Yeah, no,
additional way of reaching smaller communities.
Right, and that makes a lot of sense too, because I think if people are going to events like that are put on by, organizations run by, like, say, like-minded people, like you said, a Hispanic event, things like that, there's probably more trust in what they're learning at those events, right? Because it's people like them. It's like, okay, this information is trustworthy. So that's interesting, though. Thank you for commenting. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Our next question is, what news do you want that you can't get easily? Mitch, I'm wondering if you have any perspective on this. Is there any news about local activist groups or anything that you wish was being covered that you find you can't get through mainstream sources?
The truth.
I guess
if
I
you
would
want,
also.
if you want me to elaborate, I can, but I mean, honestly, I have been in so many organizations that I can literally point to you all the pedophiles, all the racists, all the misogynists, all the fake wokes, all the liberal, like self-haters. So, you're asking a loaded question to me on that, because I mean, you know what I mean? And that's why I don't want to bring up any personal, maybe objectification and non-discernment based language into the conversation, but just flat out simple, the truth. There is not enough. And I'll add this part, I guess. Nobody hears from my perspective. I'm technically an anarcho-syndicalist. I'm a true leftist. I'm the people beyond what they call the liberal Democrats as being leftist, as far as what the centrosphere of what our normal politics have become now. I mean, even liberals have become utopian fascists at this point, because the whole Republican Party has gone completely authoritarian. So we don't even have any true far left people like talking to the homeless and talking to those in suffering, because I learn more from talking to everyone in my community. I still talk to law enforcement, retired veterans. I go to different coalitions, churches. I've gone to Jewish synagogues. I've gone to the Muslim synagogues, and I've even gone to the Hindu Brahma temple here. I talk to everyone, because that's how you get all the information. If you just sit in one echo chamber of your same isolation, you're never going to grow to getting out a message that touches more people. And since people don't want to hear that kind of message, we're isolating down to remote reporters that are being sent to their homes, to staying in and writing from the comfort and feeling like they're doing something when they're not even getting out to doing truly investigative journalism on an integrable level where they meet the people where they are. And that's the truth.
Thank you. Chris, you look like you had something to say too.
Maybe not quite as dramatically as Mitch just put that, but just kind of unbiased, because I feel like I always have to read at least two different, like to even sort of know what the situation is, at least two different opposing views, written articles, even just to sort of get it, because, and that might not cover everything, but just one, like, you're just getting one side of the story frequently in a given article. So you have to like do your own. So you have to do your own research just to even get one topic.
Yeah, I've spoken to people through this project who do their own fact checking on every news article that they read. And I think it's too bad that we've gotten to the point where people feel that they can't trust news sources. I think that's a major problem in the news world. So yeah, thank you. Joyce, did you have anything to say about news sources, or sorry, news topics that you'd want to hear that you can't find out about easily?
Well, excuse me, my interest is basically local and, you know, what's going on here in Fayetteville. And like you say, don't have a source. And what Mitch was saying, you know, going to the groups, and that would be the best source. You know, you talk to different people and you get different perspectives, and then you find out what's going on. And as far as fact checking is concerned, you know, I'm sorry, I listen, I hear what you're saying, you know, what they're saying, but I have to think through it to see if this makes any sense. And, you know, go somewhere else and find out, you know, if this is really the truth, you know, Google or fact check, or, you know, go somewhere else and find out if it's something that bothers me that much. Sometimes, you know, it's not worth my time, but, you know, that's what I have to do, or that, you know, that's what I feel comfortable with. And you know, like I think you covered excuse me, the city council meeting here in Fayetteville for last night, I believe. And I have a group, or in fact, I have two groups that I provide information for, and that was very good content. And I sent that out, and I got a couple of emails back saying thank you, and you know how they appreciate that. And so that was wonderful. That was wonderful, because I mean, you know, not only did it tell us about the city council meeting, but it told us, you know, the things of importance or of interest that were on the agenda. So you know, that was good. And you know, that's just the, you know, the way you have to get your news.
Right. Yeah, thank you. We'll keep moving. Similar question, but a little bit different. What news is missing? It sounds like, Joyce, you're feeling like you're really missing local news. Was there a time that you remember having access to local news that you don't have that access anymore?
Well, it was the paper, you know, the stories that they cover, they are of some interest, but there are other stories that that really need to be covered with additional details, you know, about what's going on, who's involved, why it happened, you know, that kind of thing. We just don't get that anymore. You know, it's just not there. So it's all missing.
Yeah.
I would say the good news is missing. Like there's so much bad news and you don't often I'm always surprised when I see any article or mention of like people actually working on something together or something that's not divisive. So, not to say that you have to do all this like fluff pieces, but something encouraging or something that would make you feel hopeful about our communities.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. That's actually something we've heard a lot from people through this project, is that there's a lack of good news, of positive news, of hopeful news. And some folks couch that by saying that they would like to hear more about youth engagement. For example, what are the young people doing? How are they solving the problems of tomorrow, today? The sort of stuff that inspires people and gives us a sense of positivity and community. I actually subscribe to an email newsletter that's called the Good News Project. And so it's just a 5-minute read every morning to start my day with some good things that are happening around the world. And I really appreciate that perspective. All right. What challenges do you have in getting news and information? These can be, digital challenges if you have a hard time accessing the internet. It can be financial challenges if you're trying to access news that's behind a paywall. Any other challenges finding news that reflects your worldview. We're just really opening up this question. What kind of difficulties do you have getting news and information these days?
I don't know if that's called a paywall. I'm not sure what, but when you get to read like 2 or 3 articles from an online newspaper and then, get a subscription. Is that, that's a paywall? Okay. That's annoying, especially when like you read a couple of things that might not even be that relevant. And then the one article that you really need to read, that's the one where, okay, now you can't see this. Sometimes I can see like one line. I just read something yesterday where I could see one line at a time until the rest of it was covered. So I read one line at a time to read that article because I don't want to pay for that news.
Right. Yeah. The paywall is becoming more and more common, especially among local newspapers. It used to be just the New York Times had a paywall and you could read 10 articles a month, and now they're down to like 1 article per month. And that subscription service model has been picked up by lots of newspapers, especially local newspapers that are just trying to survive. So we see that is becoming more and more common.
I guess with so much what I would call biased news that so I don't subscribe to any of them, but it's like you would have to decide which one do you trust the most to be able to, unless you're going to pay for a whole lot of different subscriptions, and that's cost prohibitive for me and my situation. So it's like, then you have to know ahead of time which one is the most trustworthy. Well, that's very difficult to know, or like Mitch said, you just get the one thing that you're already the most in line with, and then you never hear the rest of the sides of the story.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. Mitch or Joyce, do you have any challenges getting news and information? And it doesn't have to be just news. We're also interested in how people get other information, you know, that might be difficult to get a hold of.
No, I think part of my problem is time. I have to try to read and get the most out of it because my time is limited. So you know, that's a challenge sometimes. But you know, that's about it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Like Chris was saying, if you're trying to get a balanced perspective, it can be very time consuming to read multiple sources and try to vet all the information that's being put in front of you. So I think that's a great point, Joyce. Thank you. In our survey, we asked questions about, we more or less asked this question about a number of different topics of news and information. One of the things that we've been really interested in hearing about is news related to healthcare, news and information related to healthcare, especially as we are in this ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. How do y'all get information related to health and well-being?
I'll go, I'm on tons of email lists, so I get some amount of kind of official government information, like Orange County Health Department, like that I read every week or to know the information for work. But on my own, I get as many different health perspectives and a lot of kind of independent, I want to say independent health people, health and wellness people, but I read a lot of them just to get a balance, I would say.
Chris, you mentioned, you know, information about like COVID-19 vaccines and such. So how do you all who are on the call feel like, do you feel like you were getting during, you know, the height of the pandemic, do you feel like you were getting enough information about where people could go and get vaccinations, where people could go and get, you know, reliable information about treatment, et cetera, especially people who maybe had challenges in getting their news or challenges with technology? Do you feel like there was enough out there for that population?
Well, my workplace, Triangle J Council of Governments, actually hired a person through a grant, federal grant, to be the COVID outreach coordinator. So he was worked for 1 year now. He's doing a different position in the same company, but so I was getting a certain amount through work and through health departments and stuff like that, which I would guess would be as close to kind of the official line. But then I was reading all kind of other things from all different perspectives, reading as much as I could about the different vaccines and things before I decided for myself. But at that time, I also worked at a retirement community where they were being the vaccines were being pushed, and there were reasons for that, and I was having to be tested every week and stuff like that. But I felt like there was certain information being pushed, but I did a lot of other research before deciding. So I think for a lot of people, they would just hear one message, whatever the one message that was going out the most on, say, radio or TV, and not hear all the different angles. So I was not satisfied with that for myself. So I did a lot more trying to read as much as I could and dig as much as I could into the different companies, and I still get all different I still get all different angles on that, even just of the different emails that I get on a weekly basis.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. All right, well, we'll open it up to any questions or comments that y'all would like to give us. Yeah, if you have any questions for us at CPP, we've got Ben Sessoms on our call, and he is our local expert on reporting in the Fayetteville area. So if you have any questions for him, please feel free to jump in, or any of the rest of us. We'll do our best to answer any questions that you may have.
I have a question. Where are you physically located?
We are based in Asheville, so that's where I am. I'm in our office in Asheville,
Okay.
but we cover the whole state. So Ben is located in Fayetteville. We have another reporter that covers Western North Carolina, and then the rest of us are kind of spread out across the state.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, thank you so much. Ellen, did you want to go ahead and wrap us up?
Sure. I just want to thank everyone again for being here. Lindsay will be following up with some information for all the attendees. And there were actually some other people who registered who were not able to attend. So anyone who registered will get, information from us. So watch your email for that. You will also be entered into winning a gift card for your participation here today. So just as an appreciation from us. Again, thank you to all everybody who attended. Thank you to the CCF people who were here as well. I did want to mention too that, we are independent, we're nonpartisan, and we are nonprofit. So we do accept donations from individual donors if you're feeling so inclined. Because we are a 501c3 organization, and our goal is, basically public service to the people of North Carolina. But we're grateful for all of you, and happy that, you read our stuff. And please check out Ben's reporting on our website under the CPP East banner. And as Lindsay said, don't hesitate to, go on the website, get in touch with any of us if you have any follow-up questions. And thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Goodbye. Have a good day.
Thank you, Joyce.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm going to stop the recording now.
Good job.